I was perched on the edge of a stiff hotel mattress in Chicago, thinking it was just another uneventful work trip. Then my phone vibrated on the bedside table. It was a motion alert from my home security system back in Portland. I almost always swipe those away. It's usually just a courier dropping something on the porch, but for some reason, this time I felt a pull. I opened the security app. As the video feed buffered and came to life on my screen, my entire world seemed to lurch to a stop. I was looking at my own living room, and I saw my parents, Carol and Richard. They weren't alone. A man in scuffed work boots stood with them, holding a tape measure against the main wall, the wall that separated my living room from my quiet, cherished home office. And then I heard my mother's voice, sharp and distinct through the camera's tiny microphone. "Leo needs this entire space for his creative studio," she said, gesturing dismissively at my wall. "Just take it down. Clara won't cause a fuss." My fingers went numb around the phone. They weren't just checking in on the house. They were planning its demolition. They were actively erasing my space, my sanctuary, to build a vanity project for my brother Leo. And they were banking on my silence. They were so sure I was too compliant to ever stand up for myself. I didn't let out a scream. I didn't hurl my phone against the wall. Instead, a strange, icy calm washed over me. I found myself smiling at the little figures on the screen. "You're right, Mom," I whispered into the silence of the hotel room. "I won't cause a fuss. I'll cause a reckoning. Before we get into the thick of it, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from today." I sat there on that hotel bed for what felt like hours. My phone screen had long gone dark, but the scene was seared onto the inside of my eyelids. My mother, pointing at my wall with such casual entitlement. My father nodding in agreement. The contractor measuring the very heart of the home I had worked so hard for. I didn't shed a tear. I think I was beyond that. Tears are for when you're hurt but still clinging to a sliver of hope. I had no hope left. All I had was a cold, dense knot forming in the pit of my stomach. I started packing my suitcase. I folded my work blouses. I placed my toiletries into their bag. I did it all with a slow, deliberate precision. My hands were perfectly steady, and that more than anything, frightened me. I felt like I should be trembling. I felt like I should be screaming into a pillow. But the quiet in that room felt more powerful than all the noise raging in my head. I checked out of the hotel before sunrise. I hailed a cab to the airport. The driver made small talk about the Chicago weather. I just nodded and murmured, "Yes, it's quite cold." I wasn't really hearing him. In my mind, I was already back in Portland. Sitting at the gate, I pulled out my laptop. I had a 2-hour wait before my flight. I had a job to do, not my corporate job. This was personal. I opened a new spreadsheet. At the very top, I typed 2 words, the accounting. For years, I had told myself I was the dutiful daughter, the supportive sister. My family reinforced this narrative constantly. "You're our rock, Clara," my dad would say with a proud smile. "You're the strong one," my mom would echo. Now I understood what those words truly meant. They meant I was the ATM. I logged into my online banking portal. I navigated to the search function and set the filter for the past 5 years. I searched for Leo Evans. I searched for Mom. I searched for Dad. The list that populated the screen was sickeningly long. It just kept scrolling. I started transferring the numbers into my spreadsheet. Item 1. September 2021. $5,000. I remembered that one vividly. Leo had called me in the middle of the night, his voice choked with sobs. He claimed he was in deep trouble with his landlord and was about to be thrown out onto the street. "It's just a loan, Clara, I swear," he'd promised. "I get my paycheck next Friday." He never paid me back. When I brought it up a month later, my mom became indignant. "He's your brother," she'd snapped. "Are you really going to count pennies? Family is supposed to help family." So I dropped it. Item 2, January 2022, $9,500. Leo had totaled his car. He swore it wasn't his fault, that there was a clerical error with his insurance that denied the claim. He needed a down payment for a new vehicle so he could get to his job. I transferred the money. I found out later he wasn't even employed. He was just using the car to drive to parties. Item 3, April 2022, $18,000. This was for his big business venture. Leo had this brilliant idea to start an artisanal, drop-shipped coffee brand. He'd shown me mock-ups and a basic website design. "I just need the seed money, Clara," he'd said with such conviction. "You'll be my first investor. You'll make double your money back in 6 months, easy." My dad had sat me down at their kitchen table. "Clara, look at his drive. You have that stable corporate job. You have savings. Help your brother build something for himself." I gave him the money. 6 months later, there was no coffee brand. The website was defunct, and Leo spent 3 weeks in Hawaii with his friends. When I confronted him, he just shrugged. "The market was volatile. It's not my fault." I kept typing, my fingers a blur on the keyboard. $2,500 for emergency root canal that never had a corresponding dental bill. $6,000 for a lawyer after he got into a brawl at a bar. $1,500 for a new laptop because he lost his. And then there were the steady transfers to my parents. $3,500 to repair their leaky roof. $5,000 for Dad's overdue property taxes. $700 a month for groceries because, as they put it, inflation is just so hard on us, Clara. I looked at the grand total calculated at the bottom of the spreadsheet. $121,000. I stared at the number until my eyes burned. It was enough to have paid off a huge chunk of my mortgage. It was enough to have traveled the world for a year. It was enough to have started a business of my own. And it was all gone. A wave of nausea washed over me. It wasn't just about the money. It was the lie. They never loved me for who I was. They loved me for what I provided. I was a resource, a utility. I was like a faucet in the wall. You turn the handle, you get what you need, and you turn it off. You don't thank the faucet. You don't love the faucet. You just expect it to be there when you need it. And now the faucet was being shut off for good. I looked up at the people bustling around the airport terminal. I saw a father buying his little girl a pretzel. She promptly dropped it, and instead of getting angry, he just chuckled and bought her another one. I wondered what that must feel like, to be loved simply for existing, to be protected instead of always being the protector. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "Hope you're having a good trip. No need to rush back. We're just checking on the house for you. Everything is fine. Love you." I read the message 3 times. Everything is fine. She was lying right to my face. At this very moment, she was probably picking out paint colors for Leo's new studio. She was probably deciding which of my cherished belongings to toss out to make room. I didn't reply. I couldn't. If I did, I might say something real. And for my plan to work, I needed them to believe I was still the same stupid, compliant daughter. I needed them to feel completely secure. Flight 388 to Portland is now boarding. The announcement echoed through the terminal. I closed my laptop, saving the file as thetruth.exsx. I stood up and walked toward the gate. I felt different, heavier but somehow more solid. For 33 years, I had tried to purchase their affection. I paid $121,000 for it, and all I got was an empty bank account and a hollow heart. I walked down the jet bridge. The air was frigid. I thought about my house, my sanctuary. I had bought that house 3 years ago, the first thing in my life that was truly and completely mine. I planted every flower in the garden out back. I painted the walls my favorite shade of slate blue. It was quiet. It was my peace. My brother Leo was noise. He was chaos. He left a trail of mess wherever he went. He blasted music at all hours. He brought strangers into our parents' home without a second thought. My parents knew all this. They knew how much I treasured my tranquility, but they didn't care. Leo wanted a studio. Leo wanted to be a content creator. Leo wanted to be famous. So, Clara had to make a sacrifice. Clara always sacrificed. "Not this time," I whispered as I stepped onto the plane. I found my window seat and watched the ground fall away as we ascended. The city of Chicago shrank into a grid of twinkling lights. I closed my eyes. I didn't sleep. I planned. I pictured the wall they were so eager to destroy. I pictured the contractor. They were assuming I'd come home, see the demolition, and burst into tears. Then, Mom would wrap me in a hug and say, "It's for the best, Clara. Leo needs this. Don't be so selfish." And Dad would add, "We can finish it nicely. It'll add value to the house." And they expected me to just roll over and say, "Okay." They were expecting the old Clara, but the old Clara was left behind on the tarmac in Chicago. The woman on this plane was someone else entirely. I wasn't going home to make peace. I was going home to declare war, but I wouldn't use my fists, and I wouldn't use my voice to scream. I would use the truth, and I would use the one thing they valued more than they ever valued me: money. The flight felt endless. I just stared out the window at the endless sea of clouds which looked soft and pillowy, so unlike my life which felt sharp and gray. When the plane finally touched down in Portland, it was drizzling. Of course it was. It felt like the sky was weeping for me, so I didn't have to. I switched my phone off airplane mode, and it immediately flooded with notifications. Work emails, junk mail, and one more text from Mom. "Leo is so excited for you to get back. We have a big surprise for you." A surprise. That's what they were calling the desecration of my home. A surprise. I felt a searing flash of rage, hot and sharp. I wanted to text back, "I saw the camera. Get out of my house." But I stopped myself. If I gave them any warning, they would scramble. They'd clean up their mess, hide the tools, and gaslight me into oblivion. They'd say, "Oh, Clara, we were just taking some measurements." We weren't really going to do it. I had to catch them red-handed. I needed them to feel completely safe in their betrayal. But I needed help. I couldn't walk into this alone. I needed someone on the inside, someone who knew what was happening in my house, right now. My mind went to Leo's fiancée, Chloe. Chloe was a relatively new addition to our family, having been with Leo for about 2 years. They'd gotten engaged 6 months ago. At first, I was wary of her. She seemed like just another one of Leo's party girl friends, always perfectly put together with her blonde hair and flawless makeup. But over the last few months, I'd noticed something else in her. I saw the weariness in her eyes during our family dinners. I saw her quietly cleaning up Leo's messes while he sat glued to his video games. I saw the way she would glance at me with a flicker of sympathy whenever my mom made a passive-aggressive remark about my career or my relationship status. It was a look that said, "I see it too." Chloe wasn't like them. She was trapped, just like I had been. I opened my texts and found her name. I typed, "I saw the security feed. I know they're at my house. I know about the wall. Landing in 2 hours. Don't tell them I'm coming." My thumb hovered over the send button. Was this a gamble? What if she was one of them? What if she ran straight to Leo and showed him the text? My entire plan would be ruined, but I had to trust my gut. And my gut was telling me that Chloe was drowning too. I pressed send. I walked through the terminal, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched the 3 little dots appear on my screen. She was typing. Then they vanished. I stopped in the middle of the concourse and someone bumped into me. "Hey, watch it," a man grumbled. I didn't even notice. The dots reappeared. Then the message came through. Thank God. I tried to stop them, Clara. I really did. Your mom said you agreed to it. She said it was a surprise gift for Leo. A breath I didn't even know I was holding escaped my lips. She hadn't betrayed me. I typed back quickly. I never agreed. They're lying. Chloe's reply was instant. I had a feeling. It's worse than you think, Clara. It's not just about the wall. A cold dread tightened its grip around my stomach. What do you mean? I have documents, she wrote. I found them in Leo's car. I took pictures. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid to tell you. What documents? Bank stuff, leases. I think he used your name. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Used my name? I moved on autopilot, walking toward the baggage claim. I grabbed my suitcase from the carousel and walked out into the cold, damp air of the parking garage. I called an Uber. I couldn't trust myself to drive. My hands were finally shaking. Once I was safely in the back of the car, I texted Chloe again. I'm on my way. Are they still there? Yes, she replied. They're setting up for his live stream. He's doing a new house tour at 2 p.m. He's going to announce the new studio. I glanced at the clock on my phone. 12:30 p.m. Meet me at the coffee shop on Belmont, the one by the park. Bring the photos. Don't let them see you leave. Okay, I'll say I'm going to get celebratory champagne. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the seat. The car smelled of artificial vanilla and stale coffee. Identity theft. That's what she was implying. This had escalated far beyond begging for money and emotional blackmail. This was a crime. My own brother. My baby brother. I remembered when he was born. I was 4 years old. I remembered holding his tiny hand and promising that I would always protect him. And I did. I protected him from bullies at school. I protected him when he failed his classes. I protected him when he couldn't make rent. I had loved him so much, but he never loved me back. He saw me as a mark. The Uber driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. You all right back there, miss? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I said, my voice flat and distant. Just a long trip. Going home to see family? He asked, his tone cheerful. Something like that, I muttered. We pulled up to the coffee shop. I tipped the driver and got out, rolling my suitcase inside. The warmth and the smell of roasted coffee beans were a stark contrast to the cold dread inside me. I spotted Chloe in a booth in the back corner. She was wearing a trench coat and large sunglasses despite the dim interior. She looked like a spy on a mission, constantly glancing toward the door. When she saw me, she stood up and took off the glasses. Her eyes were puffy and red. She'd been crying. I walked over and sat down across from her, forgoing any sort of greeting. Show me, I said. Chloe reached into her bag and pulled out a large manila envelope. Her hands were trembling. I found this under the passenger seat in his car, she whispered. I was looking for my chapstick. She slid the envelope across the table. I opened it. Inside was a stack of papers. The first was a vehicle lease, a lease for a brand new BMW X5, a luxury SUV. The monthly payment was $1,200. I scanned down to the bottom of the page, and there it was, a signature, Clara Evans, but I had never signed it. It was a decent forgery, but the loop on my C was all wrong. He told me he bought it with profits from some crypto coin, Chloe said, her voice shaking. He said he'd made a fortune on some Dogecoin knockoff, but he signed your name as the co-signer. If he misses a payment, they'll come after you. A cold fire ignited in my chest. I flipped to the next document. It was a credit card statement, a premium travel rewards card. The spending limit was $25,000. The cardholder's name was Richard Evans. My father. He opened this one in your dad's name, Chloe explained. Look at the balance. I did. $24,780. He maxed it out, she whispered, in less than a month. Camera equipment, designer clothes, a trip to Miami for his team. Does Dad know? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Chloe shook her head. I don't think so. Leo has the mail redirected. He set up the online account to go to a burner email address. There was one more document. It was a business loan application for $75,000. The applicant was Clara Evans. He applied for this last week, Chloe said. It hasn't been approved yet, but Clara, he used your social security number. He knows your social. I stared at the application. I felt physically violated. It was worse than someone breaking into my house. He had broken into my life. He had stolen the very numbers that defined me. And my parents? They were at my home right now, tearing down a wall to help him do it. Why are you showing me this? I asked Chloe, looking her straight in the eye. You're supposed to marry him. Chloe looked down at her hands, twisting the large diamond on her ring finger. I'm not, she said softly. She looked up at me, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I can't marry him, Clara. I thought he was just irresponsible with money, a bit of a dreamer. But this is criminal. He lies about everything. To me, to you, to your parents. She took a shuddering breath. He told me you wanted to pay for everything. He said you were rich and you enjoyed helping him because you didn't have a husband or kids of your own. He said you were lonely and this made you feel important. That sentence struck me like a physical blow, you see. Lonely, no husband or kids, makes me feel important. That's how he'd framed it in his mind. He told himself he was doing me a favor by bleeding me dry. He had twisted my generosity into a pathetic caricature of a lonely spinster buying affection. I closed the folder and placed my hand on top of it. You're right, I said, my voice like steel. You can't marry him. What are we going to do? Chloe asked, looking utterly terrified. If I go back there, he'll know I told you. You're going to go back, I said, my voice steady and commanding. You're going to act completely normal. You're going to help him set up for his big launch. You're going to smile. I paused. But I need everyone there. I need Mom, Dad, and Leo all in that room, and I need his camera rolling. You're going to crash the stream? No, I said, standing up and grabbing my suitcase. I'm going to end it. I looked down at Chloe. She looked so small and frightened, but I saw a flicker of defiance in her eyes. She had handed me the ammunition. Now it was up to me to fire the weapon. Go back to the house, I instructed. Wait for my entrance. When I walk in, don't say a word until I look at you. Then, you hand me this folder. I pushed the envelope back toward her. You want me to hold on to it? Yes. If I walk in with it, they'll know something is up. They might try to physically stop me, but they won't suspect you. You're the doting loyal fiancé. Chloe nodded, wiping her eyes and putting the folder back in her purse. Clara, she said. Yes, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. You told me now, I replied. That's all that matters. She left the coffee shop and I watched her hurry to her car. I stayed for a moment longer and ordered a black coffee, which I drank standing at the counter. The bitter liquid sharpened my senses. I checked my watch. 1:15 p.m. The live stream was at 2 p.m. I had 45 minutes. I walked out onto the street. The rain had subsided to a fine mist, but the sky remained a bruised, heavy gray. It suited my mood. I didn't call another Uber. I walked down the street to a local rental agency. I wanted to be in the driver's seat. I wanted to be in control. I rented a nondescript sedan, put my suitcase in the trunk, and sat behind the wheel, adjusting the rearview mirror. I studied my reflection. I looked exhausted. There were dark circles under my eyes. My hair was a wreck from the flight. I didn't bother fixing it. I didn't put on any makeup. I wanted them to see me like this, raw, unfiltered, real. I wasn't some celebrity. I wasn't an influencer. I was a woman who worked 60-hour weeks to pay for the very roof they were standing under. I started the engine and drove toward my neighborhood. The streets grew more familiar. The towering Douglas firs, the quiet suburban lawns. I turned onto my street, and my heart began to hammer against my ribs. I saw it from a block away. My driveway was packed. My parents' sedan was there. Leo's brand new BMW, the one I had apparently co-signed for, was parked arrogantly at an angle. A white contractor's van was parked on the lawn, and there were balloons. They had tied a garish bunch of black and gold balloons to my mailbox. A sign stuck into my flower bed read, "Leo's Studio Launch Party." My prize-winning hydrangeas were trampled. I parked the rental car 3 houses down the street, killed the engine, and pulled out my phone. I opened the security app again. I switched to the live view. My living room was gone. My sofa, my coffee table, my beautiful Persian rug, all vanished. In their place stood an array of bright ring lights on tripods, a ridiculous-looking gaming chair, a desk with a triple monitor setup, and a large green screen propped up against the wall. The wall they hadn't demolished yet. Thank God for small mercies, but I could see a sledgehammer leaning against it, waiting. Leo was standing in the center of it all, preening. He was wearing a new designer jacket and checking his hair in one of the monitors. "Okay, Mom," I heard him say into a microphone. "When I start the stream, you and Dad stand just off camera and clap, okay? Make it sound like there's a crowd. We're so proud of you, sweetie." My mother's voice cooed as she stepped into the frame. She was wearing her best dress. "Richard, get off the phone," Leo barked. My dad wandered into view, phone to his ear. "I'm just checking the credit limit, Leo. The card got declined at the liquor store." "Don't worry about it," Leo snapped. "I'll deal with it later. Just be ready to clap when I tell you to." I watched them, these actors in a grotesque play, celebrating on the ruins of my life. I checked the time. 1:58 p.m. "All right, guys, 2 minutes," Leo announced. "Get ready. This is going to be legendary." I put my phone in my pocket and opened the car door. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and rain. I started walking toward my house, my steps silent on the wet pavement. I wasn't Clara the daughter anymore. I wasn't Clara the sister. I was the landlord. And it was eviction day. I reached my driveway and stopped. The bass from some terrible electronic music was so loud it was vibrating the windows of my own house. My stomach churned as I looked at my lawn. My grandmother's armchair, a beautiful vintage velvet piece I had lovingly restored by hand, was sitting on the wet grass. The drizzle was soaking into the delicate fabric. Next to it was my coffee table, which had a half-eaten pizza slice and a red plastic cup that had spilled sticky soda all over the wood. They had treated my life's treasures like garbage, clearing them out to build their pathetic stage. I walked up the driveway, past Leo's new car, past the contractor's van. The front door was wide open, an invitation to the world. They acted like they owned the place. I stepped inside, staying in the shadows of the entryway. I wanted to observe for a moment before I made my entrance. The living room was a nightmare. The walls were covered in cheap, ugly soundproofing foam panels. 3 massive ring lights were set up, casting a sterile, blindingly bright glare. In the center of it all, Leo sat in his gaming chair like a king on a shoddy throne. He had on a large headset and was speaking into an oversized microphone. My parents were standing behind the camera. My mother was sipping a glass of wine, while my dad was holding a homemade applause sign. Chloe was standing in the corner by the kitchen, looking pale. She caught my eye in the hallway, and her own eyes widened in alarm. I put a single finger to my lips. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod and looked down at her phone. Leo's voice, artificially hyped up and booming, filled the room. "What is up, Stream Team?" he yelled. "Welcome to the official launch of the Leo Evans Creative Hub. We are live, we are massive, and we are going straight to the moon." My dad dutifully held up the applause sign, and my mom started clapping and wooing like a paid audience member. "That's right," Leo continued. "As you can see, we've had a major upgrade. New house, new gear, new energy. I bought this place specifically so I could bring you guys bigger and better content every single day." A vein throbbed in my temple. I bought this place. The lie rolled off his tongue so effortlessly. He didn't even flinch. He truly believed it. He believed that because I was his sister, what was mine was automatically his. "We have a huge stream for you today," Leo said, reading from a script on one of his monitors. "We're going to do a full house tour, unbox some brand new equipment, and later, I have a massive announcement about my new crypto project." He glanced at a different monitor, reading the live chat. User J Money says, "Sick new crib, bro." "Thanks, man. Yeah, it cost a pretty penny, but you know what they say, hard work pays off, right? Hard work." I thought about the weekends I'd spent at the office, the holidays I'd missed, the years of eating ramen and driving a beat-up sedan so I could save every last penny for this home. And he was sitting there, basking in the glory of his hard work. I pulled out my phone and opened his stream. The viewer count read 2,600. Not a massive audience, but it was enough. Over 2,000 people were watching him lie through his teeth. I put the phone away, took a deep breath, and smoothed down my shirt. I didn't touch my messy hair. I didn't wipe the mist from my face. I stepped out of the shadows and walked directly into the blinding light of the living room. My dad saw me first. His smile evaporated, and his face went slack with shock. He looked like he was trying to swallow a rock. He made a frantic little gesture with his hand, trying to wave me back, to hide me. I ignored him. I walked straight for the camera. Leo didn't see me until I was standing right beside his chair. He caught my movement in his monitor and spun around. "Whoa," he said, his expression momentarily confused. Then the fake, high-energy smile snapped back into place. "Yo, guys, look who it is!" A surprise guest. He reached out to throw an arm around my shoulder, trying to pull me into the frame, as if I were just another prop in his show. "This is my sister, Clara. She stopped by to wish me luck." "Say hi to the stream team, Clara." He squeezed my shoulder hard. It was a clear warning. Play along. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I reached up and calmly removed his hand from my shoulder, dropping it as if it were something foul. Then I looked directly into the camera lens. "I'm not a guest," I said. My voice was quiet, but it sliced through the room's fake energy. The high-end microphone picked it up perfectly. "I'm the owner of this house, and you are all trespassing." The room went dead silent. The only sound was the low hum of the computer's cooling fans. Leo let out a laugh, but it was nervous and high-pitched. "Ha ha ha ha! She's such a kidder, guys. Always pulling pranks on me. Good one, Clara." He turned to me, his eyes blazing with fury, and whispered through clenched teeth, "What the hell are you doing? Get out of the shot." "No," I said loudly, stepping even closer to the camera. I wanted every single one of those 2,600 people to see my face. I wanted them to see the profound exhaustion etched into my features. "My name is Clara Evans," I said to the camera. "I purchased this house in 2021. My name is on the deed. My name is on the mortgage. My brother Leo does not live here. He broke in while I was away on a business trip." "Cut the feed," my dad shouted, dropping his cardboard sign and scrambling toward the computer. "Don't you dare touch it." I snapped at him. My voice was so sharp, so full of an authority he had never heard from me before, that my father actually froze in his tracks. He had only ever known the quiet, agreeable daughter. "If you cut this feed," I told my dad, "I will call the police right now and press charges for breaking and entering." My mother rushed forward, her face a mask of terror. "Clara, please, you're embarrassing us in front of all these people." "I know," I said. "That's the entire point." I turned back to Leo. He was ghost white, his eyes glued to the chat monitor. I glanced at it too. The comments were flying by. "Wait, what's happening? Is this a bit?" "She looks dead serious. LOL, family drama." "Wait, did he actually steal the house? You wanted content, Leo," I asked him. "Here's your content." I pulled a folded piece of paper from my back pocket. It was the printout of my spreadsheet, the accounting. "Leo just told you all that hard work pays off," I announced to the camera. "He told you he bought this house. He told you he bought his fancy car with crypto gains." "Clara, stop," Leo pleaded, his voice cracking. "We can talk about this later, please." "We're done talking," I said. "For the last 5 years, I've been the one talking. Now, I'm going to be the one reading." I unfolded the paper. "September 2021, I read clearly. Loan for rent, $5,000. Never repaid." "That was a gift," Mom shrieked from the back. "You gave him that money." I ignored her. January 2022. Car accident down payment, $9,500. "You claimed it wasn't your fault, but the police report said you were texting and driving." Leo shot up from his chair. "Shut up! You're ruining everything." He lunged for the paper, but I stepped back. April 2022, I continued, raising my voice. "Business investment for a coffee company, $18,000. The money was spent on a 3-week vacation in Hawaii." The chat was a waterfall of outrage. "Oh my God, exposed. Hawaii? Bro, pay your sister back. What a loser." August 2023, I read on. Bail money, $6,000. Leo froze. He glanced at the camera, horrified. He knew that was a secret. He'd told his followers he was taking a mental health break. He never told them he was in a jail cell for assault. "Stop it!" my mother screamed, running over and grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You are destroying him. He's your brother. How can you be so cruel?" I looked at my mother, then down at her hand, clutching my arm. Cruel. I spent my entire adult life funding his failures. I paid for his rent, his cars, his legal troubles. I have given him over $120,000, and in return, he and his parents decide to tear my house down? That's what you call cruel. I pulled my arm free. Now, this is the part of the stream where you sit down and shut up. My parents looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. I had never, ever spoken to them like that. Leo had sunk back into his chair, covering his face with his hands. "It was a loan, Clara," he mumbled into his palms. "I was going to pay you back. All of it." The fake streamer voice was gone, replaced by the pathetic whine I knew so well. I just needed a little more time. The channel is about to take off. You don't build a career by stealing from the people who love you, I said. The energy in the room had completely deflated. My parents were huddled together, looking like frightened, scolded children. Leo was a crumpled mess. But I wasn't finished, because this was only the money he'd scammed from me. This was only the part I knew about. I looked over to the corner of the room where Chloe was still standing, clutching her purse. "Chloe," I said. Everyone's head swiveled to look at her. Leo looked up, confused, not understanding why I was bringing her into this. "Do you have the envelope?" I asked. Chloe nodded. Her face was tear-streaked, but her jaw was set. She walked forward, stepping into the bright lights. "Chloe, don't," Leo said, real fear finally creeping into his voice. "Babe, please." Chloe didn't even look at him. She looked right at me as she handed me the manila envelope. "What is that?" my dad asked. I opened the envelope and pulled out the lease agreement. "This," I said, holding it up for the camera to see, "is why the stream is really over." I looked at Leo. "You can beg for money. You can lie about owning a house. That just makes you a loser." I shook the paper. "But this makes you a criminal." I held the lease agreement in my hand. It was just a flimsy piece of paper, but it felt like a lead weight. It felt like a verdict. Leo stared at the envelope, his face completely drained of color. He looked like a ghost. "Where did you get that?" he whispered, his voice cracking. He wasn't talking to me or the camera anymore. He was talking to Chloe. Chloe stood beside me, her body trembling but her resolve firm. "I found it in your car," she said, her voice quiet but ringing with clarity in the silent room. "Under the seat. You told me you bought the BMW with crypto money. You said you paid cash." Leo licked his lips, his eyes darting toward the door as if plotting an escape. "I did," he lied weakly. "That's just old paperwork. It means nothing." "Stop lying," I commanded. I walked over to my father and handed him the document. "Look at the bottom, Dad," I said. "Look at the signature." My father took the paper, his hands shaking. He squinted at the bottom of the page while my mother leaned over his shoulder. "It says, Clara Evans," my dad read aloud. He looked up at me, his expression bewildered. "You co-signed for him." "No, Dad." "I didn't." "But your signature is right there," my mother insisted, pointing at the ink. "That's your name. You must have forgotten. You help him out so much, maybe you just signed it without really thinking." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Even now, with irrefutable proof in her hands, she was desperately trying to protect him. She was trying to frame it as my mistake, not his felony. "Mom," I said patiently, "look at the date. October 18th. My mother looked. "So?" "I was in Chicago on October 18th, I said. "I was at a national sales conference. I have the plane tickets. I have the hotel receipts. I wasn't even in the state of Oregon." The room fell into a profound silence. "And look at the C," I added. "I always loop my C from the top. That one is looped from the bottom." My father peered closer, tracing the signature with a trembling finger. He knew my handwriting. He'd seen it on birthday cards and loan checks for 33 years. "It's not her signature," Dad whispered, his voice hollow. He looked at Leo. "You signed her name?" Leo bolted up from his chair, knocking it over with a loud crash. "I had to!" he yelled, his face flushing a deep, mottled red. "I needed the car for my brand. You can't be a top-tier influencer driving a beat-up Civic. I needed the BMW to look successful." "So you committed identity theft?" I asked. "I was going to make the payments," he shouted, his voice verging on hysterical. "Once the channel blew up, I was going to pay it all off. You would have never even known." "That is forgery," I stated calmly. "That is fraud. That is a felony, Leo." My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. For the first time all day, she wasn't looking at him with adoration. She was looking at him with genuine fear. The live stream was, of course, still running. I glanced at the monitor. The chat was moving so fast I couldn't read the individual messages, but the emojis told the story. Police cars, sirens, shocked faces. "Is this real?" someone typed. "Bro is going to prison live on stream," another wrote. Leo saw the chat too. He lunged for the computer, reaching for the mouse to end the stream. "Leave it," I said. "No," he screamed. "Turn it off." "You wanted to be famous," I said. "You wanted an audience. Well, you've got one. Let them watch." He froze, staring at me with a look of pure, undiluted hatred. "You're ruining my life," he spat. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more." It was a childish, petty insult, but it still landed with a dull thud. It was the one truth he'd ever told. They did love him more. I'd known that since I was a child. "Yes," I said calmly. "They love you more. They gave you everything. They gave me nothing but expectations and burdens." I took a step closer to him. "But being the favorite didn't save you, did it? Being the favorite made you weak. You think the world owes you something just because Mom and Dad never said no. But the world isn't Mom and Dad, and neither am I." My mother finally broke, collapsing into loud, heaving sobs. "Please," she wailed, "let's just fix this. We can return the car. We can say it was all a big misunderstanding. Clara, don't tell anyone. We're a family." "A family?" I repeated, gesturing to the half-demolished hole in my wall and the trash on my floor. "A family doesn't steal your identity. A family doesn't measure your home for destruction behind your back. We'll pay for the wall," Mom begged. "With what money?" I asked flatly. "You borrow money from me for groceries." Mom went silent. "It's over," I said. "The car is going back, the studio is done, and all of you need to leave." Leo let out another manic laugh. "You can't kick us out," he sneered. "Mom and Dad said I could live here. Squatters' rights or something." I looked it up. I just shook my head. "You broke in this morning. You're not a squatter, Leo. You're an intruder." "I'm not going anywhere," he said, defiantly sitting on the edge of the desk and crossing his arms like a toddler. "Okay," I said, "but we're not done here." I turned to Chloe. "Show them the rest." My father was still holding the forged lease, looking like he was about to be sick. He was leaning against the wall for support. Chloe reached into her purse once more and pulled out the second stack of papers. Leo saw them, and his eyes went wide with panic. "Chloe, don't," he warned, his voice low and menacing. "If you do this, we are finished. I mean it. I'll break off the engagement." Chloe just looked at him, then down at the diamond ring on her finger. In a small, deliberate motion, she slid the ring off. She walked over to the desk and placed it next to him. The diamond made a soft, final click against the wood. "We were finished the moment I found these," she said. She then turned to my father. "Richard," she said gently, "you need to check your phone." "My phone?" my dad asked, sounding dazed. "Check your email," she said, "and open your credit score app." Leo set up the alerts to go to a hidden folder, but you should be able to search for them. My dad fumbled his phone out of his pocket, his hands shaking so badly he could barely unlock the screen. "What is this about?" my mom demanded, her voice shrill. "What else did he do?" "Tell them, Leo," I said. Leo stared at the floor, his breathing ragged, like a cornered animal. "He opened credit cards," Chloe said, holding up the statements. 3 of them. "In your name, Richard. High interest, high limit cards." "I never signed up for any new cards," my dad mumbled, scrolling through his phone. "You didn't have to," Chloe said. "He has your social security number. He has your date of birth. He did it all online." My dad stopped scrolling. He froze, his eyes fixed on the screen. His mouth fell open. "Oh my God," he whispered. "What?" Mom cried, grabbing his arm. "Richard, what is it?" "Alert," Dad read from his phone in a monotone. "Chase Sapphire. Over limit. Balance. $16,500. He swiped. Capital One Venture. Balance. $14,000. He swiped again. American Express Gold. Balance. $15,000. He dropped his phone. It hit the carpet with a soft thud. My father looked at his son, the boy he had coddled for 28 years, the boy he had protected, the boy he had forced me to support. $45,000, Dad whispered. "You spent $45,000? I needed the gear," Leo yelled. "Look at this stuff. The cameras, the lights, the PC. It's an investment. I was building a business. You stole from us." Dad's voice was broken. He wasn't yelling, which was somehow worse. It was the sound of a heart shattering in real time. "We don't have that kind of money, Leo," Dad said. "We're retired. We live on a fixed income. That was our retirement fund. I was going to pay it back," Leo screamed, standing up and kicking the desk. "Why does no one believe in me? I'm going to be rich. This channel is going to make millions." "When?" I asked. "Soon," Leo shouted. "I just needed more time." "You don't have time," I said. "And you don't have a business." I pointed to the monitor. "Look at the chat, Leo." He looked. The chat wasn't a stream of support. It was a torrent of venom. Thief, scammer. He stole his parents' retirement. Unsubscribed. Everyone report this channel. The viewer count was plummeting. 2,600, 1,900, 1,300. His audience was abandoning him in droves. "You don't build a brand on lies," I said, my voice cutting through his frantic breathing. "You build a prison." "You did this," Leo seethed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You turned them all against me. You're just jealous because I'm talented and you're nothing but a boring corporate robot." "I am a boring corporate robot," I agreed. "I go to work. I pay my bills. I don't steal from my own family." My mother was now sitting on the floor, weeping into her hands. She wasn't defending him anymore. The money was too much. She could forgive him for hurting me, for taking over my house. But stealing their life savings, that was the line. It was pathetic, really. It proved they never cared about my pain, only theirs. "Richard," Mom cried, "what are we going to do? We can't pay that debt. We'll lose our house." My dad looked at Leo, his eyes now cold as ice. "You're going to pay it back," he said to his son. "You're going to return all of this equipment, sell the car, everything." "I can't," Leo whined. "I opened the boxes. I can't return it for the full price. And the car, the dealership won't just take it back. I'm underwater on the loan." "Then you get a job," Dad said. "You get 2 jobs. You work until every last cent is paid back." "A job?" Leo scoffed. "I'm a creator, Dad. I can't go work at some coffee shop. It would ruin my image." I watched them argue, a slow-motion car crash of a family. My father, finally seeing his son for the fraud he was. My mother crying over their financial ruin instead of the moral bankruptcy of her child. And Leo, still delusional, still clinging to the fantasy of an image that mattered more than his crimes. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a movie. I wasn't a part of this family anymore. I was just an observer. I looked at Chloe, who was standing by the door. She looked free. She had lit the fuse and was now watching the explosion from a safe distance. I walked over to the desk, looked into the camera lens one last time, and said, "Stream's over." I reached behind the PC and yanked a power cord from the wall. The monitors went black. The ring lights flickered and died. The room was plunged into a dim, gray twilight, lit only by the weak daylight from the window. The silence was deafening. "You turned it off," Leo whispered, staring at the black screens. "You killed my stream." "I did," I said. I pulled my phone from my pocket. And now, I said, dialing 3 numbers, I'm doing the one thing Mom and Dad should have done 20 years ago. Who are you calling? Mom asked, looking up from the floor, her face streaked with mascara. 911, I said. No, Mom screamed, scrambling to her feet. Clara, no, you can't call the police on your own brother. He committed multiple felonies, I said. Identity theft, credit card fraud, forgery. We can handle this as a family, Dad said, stepping toward me. Clara, put the phone down. We don't need the police involved. It will ruin his record. He'll never be able to get a proper job. He already doesn't have a job, I said. I pressed the call button and put the phone to my ear. Clara, please, Mom begged, grabbing my shirt. He's just a boy. He made a mistake. I looked at my mother, into her desperate, pleading eyes. She was still doing it. Even now, she was still choosing him. She was willing to let him destroy my credit and their retirement, all to shield him from a single consequence. He is not a boy, Mom, I said calmly. He's a 28-year-old man. The operator's voice came on the line. 911, what is your emergency? I held my mother's gaze as I spoke, my voice clear and steady. I need to report a crime. I'm at 514 Hemlock Drive. There's an intruder in my home, and I have evidence of identity theft and grand larceny. Clara! My dad yelled. I turned my back on them and walked toward the front door. Please send an officer, I told the operator. I'll meet them in the driveway. I walked out of the house, past the trampled hydrangeas and my grandmother's chair soaking in the rain. I stood in the driveway and waited. The air was cold, but for the first time in as long as I could remember, I didn't feel a chill. I wasn't protecting them anymore. I was finally protecting myself. The police arrived within 5 minutes, their blue lights flashing silently against the gray sky. 2 patrol cars pulled up. 4 officers got out. I walked down the driveway to meet them, my hands empty. Are you the caller? The first officer, a tall man with a grim face, asked. Yes, I said. I'm the homeowner. My name is Clara Evans. You reported an intruder? Yes, I confirmed. And financial fraud. I gestured toward the house, where the front door was still ajar. I could hear shouting from inside. My mother was screaming hysterically. My brother is inside, I explained. He broke in while I was away. He has also forged my signature on a vehicle lease and stolen my parents' identity to open nearly $50,000 worth of credit cards. The officer looked at me, taking in my calm demeanor. He nodded once. Okay, please stay here. The officers proceeded toward the house. I followed but kept my distance. When we entered the living room, it was pure chaos. Leo was frantically trying to unplug his computer, ripping cords from the wall. Sir, step away from the equipment, one of the officers ordered. I'm leaving, Leo yelled. I'm just taking my stuff and getting out of here. This isn't his stuff, I said from the doorway. It was all purchased with stolen credit cards. Liar. Leo screamed and lunged, not at his equipment but toward me. The officer moved with surprising speed, stepping in front of Leo and twisting his arm behind his back. Calm down, son, the officer said firmly. Get off me. Leo struggled. Do you know who I am? I'm a public figure. You can't touch me. Leo, stop it, my dad yelled. He was sitting on the floor, holding his head in his hands, looking 20 years older than he had that morning. Chloe walked over to the police and handed them the manila envelope. Here is the proof, she said, her voice unshakable. The forged lease, the credit card statements. It's all in there. An officer took the papers and scanned the signature on the lease. He looked at Tyler. Leo Evans, the officer said, his voice devoid of emotion. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. No, my mother shrieked, running at the officer. He didn't mean it. He's just a boy. He made a mistake. A second officer had to physically restrain my mother as she kicked and cried. "Ma'am, step back," the officer warned, "or you'll be arrested for obstruction." "He's a criminal, Mom," I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried across the room, and I'm done protecting him. I watched as the officer snapped the handcuffs onto Leo's wrists. The sound was metallic and final. Click, click. Leo looked at me, his eyes filled not with remorse, but with furious, hateful tears. "I hate you," he hissed. "You did this to me. You did this to yourself," I replied. I just turned on the lights. They walked him out of my house, stumbling and defeated. He didn't look like a king anymore. He just looked like a common thief. My parents watched him go. My mother collapsed onto my grandmother's ruined armchair, which was still on the lawn. She let out a wail of pure animal grief. But she wasn't grieving for me. She wasn't grieving for their stolen retirement. She was grieving because her golden boy was finally being held accountable. When the police cars were finally gone, the house felt cavernous and empty. It was just me, my parents, and Chloe. Chloe picked up her purse. "I'm going to go," she said to me. "I'm so sorry about all of this, Clara." "Thank you," I said sincerely, "for telling the truth." She nodded, not even glancing at my parents, and walked out the door without looking back. She was the smartest one of all. She got out before the ship went completely under. I turned to my parents. They were standing in the middle of the wrecked living room, surrounded by peeling foam and scratched floors. My father's face was flushed with a deep, furious red. "Are you happy now?" he demanded. I blinked. "Happy?" "You have destroyed this family," he shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You called the police on your own brother. You sent him to jail. How could you do that to us?" I just stared at him, incredulous, even now. Even after seeing the debts, the forgery, the utter lack of remorse. "He stole $45,000 from you, Dad," I said. "He stole my identity. He was going to demolish my home." "It's just money," Mom yelled, scrambling to her feet. "We could have figured out the money, but you can't fix a criminal record. You've ruined his entire future." "He ruined his own future," I said. "You're heartless," Mom spat. "You've always been cold and jealous of him. You wanted this to happen." "I wanted a brother," I said quietly. "I got a parasite." I walked to the front door and held it open. "Get out." "What?" Dad asked. "Get out of my house," I repeated, my voice leaving no room for argument. "Both of you, take your car and get out." "You can't just kick us out," Mom said aghast. "We're your parents." "You're not my parents," I said. "You're Leo's parents. You made that choice years ago." "We have nowhere to go," Dad protested. "We drove here from our place. We're tired." "Go to a hotel," I said. "I hear the ones downtown are very nice, but you are not staying here." I stood there, an unmovable object in the doorway. I waited. They looked at me, searching for the weak, pliable girl who always caved. They were looking for the daughter who wrote checks and apologized for her own success. She wasn't there anymore. They saw a stranger, a woman who was finally, completely done. Slowly, my father picked up his jacket. He took my mother's arm. She was still crying, muttering about how cruel and ungrateful I was. They walked past me without a word, without a glance. I watched them get into their car. I watched them drive away. I closed the front door. I locked the deadbolt. I slid the chain across. Then I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor. The house was utterly silent. It was a disaster zone. There were holes in the wall, trash on the floor, and my furniture was soaked on the lawn. But it was mine. I didn't cry. I just sat there, listening to the sound of the rain on the roof, and it was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. A few weeks later, I got a call from my Aunt Martha. Martha was my dad's sister, and the only person in our family with a shred of common sense. She'd called me the day after the arrest, and she hadn't yelled. She just listened. Now she was calling with an update. "They lost the house, Clara," Martha said, her voice heavy. "My parents?" "Yes," she sighed. "The credit card debt was just too much. The interest rates were astronomical. And they spent every last bit of their savings on a lawyer for Leo." "Of course they did," I said, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. "They're moving into a tiny rental apartment in Arizona," Martha continued. "They're telling everyone who will listen that you're the reason they're broke, you know, that you're a monster." I smiled, a genuine smile this time. "Let them," I said. "Let them spin whatever story they want. I've got the receipts." "Leo took a plea deal," she added. 18 months for fraud and grand larceny. With good behavior, he could be out in a year. "He won't behave," I said. "No," Martha agreed, "he won't." She paused. "Are you all right, sweetie?" "I'm better than all right, Aunt Martha," I said. "I'm free." 6 months passed. It was spring in Portland, and the endless rain had finally given way to a weak but welcome sun. I was in my backyard. I had turned the spare room, the one they'd wanted to destroy, into a beautiful sunroom. I'd installed huge glass windows and started a hydroponic garden. It was quiet, peaceful work. I was checking the pH of the water, trimming basil leaves, and watching new life grow. The air smelled of mint and tomatoes and clean earth. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to the front of the house. It was beautiful again. I'd bought new furniture, not expensive, just comfortable things that I loved. A soft gray sofa, a rug that felt good under my bare feet. I opened the door. It was Chloe, and Aunt Martha was with her. Chloe looked transformed. Her hair was cut into a chic bob, and she wore minimal makeup. She looked younger, lighter. "We were in the neighborhood," Martha smiled, holding up a box of pastries. "Thought we'd drop in on your sanctuary." "Come in," I beamed. We sat in the new sunroom, and I made peppermint tea with mint from my own garden. We didn't talk about Leo or my parents. Chloe told us about her new job at a veterinary clinic. She was dating a high school history teacher. A nice, boring teacher who pays his own bills, she joked. It's heaven. Martha told us about her grandkids. We just sat there for hours while the sun streamed in. Eventually, the conversation drifted, as it always does. "I spoke to your father last week," Martha said quietly, staring into her teacup. I didn't flinch. I didn't feel that old, familiar knot of dread. "How are they?" I asked. "Miserable," Martha said bluntly. "They're broke, and they're bitter. They still treat Leo's letters from prison like they're gospel." She looked up at me. "They say you abandoned them, Clara. They say you're ungrateful." I looked over at my tomato plants, their vines strong and green, their roots deep in the nutrient-rich water. I had pruned away all the yellowing leaves so the healthy parts could thrive. "I didn't abandon them," I said softly. "I evicted them. I picked up my gardening shears and snipped a dead stem from a basil plant. For 30 years, I tried to grow in their soil," I said. "But their soil was toxic. I was withering, Aunt Martha. I was dying." I looked at the 2 women sitting with me. Chloe, who had the courage to speak up. Martha, who had the courage to listen. The ones who had stood by me when my world fell apart. "Family isn't just who shares your blood," I said. "It's who respects your roots." I poured them both more tea. "I'm not the provider anymore," I told them, a real smile spreading across my face. "I'm the gardener." I looked around my quiet, sunny, peaceful home. There were no demands. There was no chaos. There were no debts. My garden was finally free of weeds, and for the first time in my life, I was finally blooming.